Hello and welcome, everyone. The final day of a 67th San Francisco International Film Festival. I hope everyone has had a good last 5 days while here. Um, Yay. One thing I just want to mention, we have so many wonderful volunteers and staff who help keep this running very smoothly. So as you go about the campus and go to see different films, please thank them for their hard work. They also like to be able to come see films. They are avid film lovers, so we're grateful for all of that support. I am Ann Lai, the executive director of SF Film, and it's such a delight to be here. I was just saying to my colleague, my hands just got so sweaty because I'm standing in front of Joan and Janet. We're here for a tribute to Joan Chen and to also see her wonderful directorial debut film. But Janet and Joan, you didn't know this, but you were mentors to me as I was coming up in the business. I'm going to get a little bit teary, but it meant a lot. And so I'm so excited. This is very unprofessional. Sorry. But one of the things that we talk about that we so love about the festival is that it's an entry point for discovering whether it's new worlds, new countries, new languages, new relationships. It's a really special relationship that you get to have as a human being to the screen and to a story that's being told to you. We have an education program. We're bringing a lot of students into theaters, and we really are interested in you as an audience and how to help explore together. And I think in particular, we have audiences here who aren't afraid to be a little bit challenged and to be provoked with different ideas and new ideas. And I would say Joan is a very good example of that, of someone who isn't afraid. We wouldn't be able to do the work that we do year round and at this festival without our supporters. We have a wonderful board of directors. We have wonderful sponsors, volunteers, as I mentioned. And we also, for today's event, have a wonderful sponsor with Jennifer Himes-Batot. So thank you for making this program possible. But you are not here to hear me talk. So I'm going to pass this over to my colleague who is the maestro behind the programming here, Director of Programming, Jesse Fairbanks.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction, Anne. We are so excited to be here. If you can't tell, we're all very emotional. We have the distinct privilege of honoring a cinematic icon and the star of our opening night film and local film legend, Joan Chen. We are thrilled to present her with the tribute at the 2024 San Francisco International Film Festival in recognition of her trailblazing work as a director, a producer, a writer, a filmmaker, and a performer. She has tremendous screen performances that many of you might be familiar with, but wasn't satisfied with stories being made for her. And so she went and made her films, which we'll talk about in a minute, one of which you're going to see today, her directorial debut, which was in a stunningly assured piece of work, Xiu Xiu, the Sent Down Girl, which screened at the festival in both 1998 and in 2017. Today, you're very lucky you're going to see a rare 35 millimeter print that Joan personally made sure we had here at the audience to screen with all of you. It's beautiful. As some of you may know, Joan Chen made her screen debut at 15 with Youth in 1997, which rocketed her to stardom. She was a celebrity in her native China, something that she's still coming to terms with, stardom. The shift into acting allowed Joan to avoid conscription during the final stages of the Chinese Cultural Revolution, a very different fate from what you will see in the protagonist in her film today, and one of the reasons why Joan was compelled to make the film. Later, after relocating to the U.S., other doors opened for Joan as a performer. She famously starred in Bernardo Bertolucci's The Last Emperor, which many of us love. And she won hearts and audiences with her portrayal of Josie Packard in David Lynch's Twin Peaks. She has since made over 70 films collaborating with people like Oliver Stone and Tony Ayer and Ong Lee. She starred in Alice Wu's Saving Face and is currently working on a Netflix series, Marco Polo. And of course, she was the scene-stealing mother, Qing in Sean Wong's directorial debut in our opening night film, Dìdi. well before she made the work that I just talked about, Joan decided that she was going to tell her own stories. I can't overstate how much of a maverick she is. Joan decided to go make a film without a license, kind of, a guerrilla type film in China at a time when women of color were not making films. They were not getting support and funding, and the apparatus was not open to them. And Joan pushed that door open and has held that door open for many to come up behind her. It cannot be overstated just what a maven she is as a filmmaker. She has made several short films in addition to Xiu Xiu, The Scent Down Girl. She made a celebrated documentary, The Iron Hammer, which was about the Chinese Women Olympic volleyball star Jenny Langping. She has completed Chinese language feature films, that one of which is currently awaiting release. She has a memoir coming out this fall. And in particular, Joan is very interested in supporting the local creative talent here in the Bay Area and has been very generous with her time welcoming new storytellers into the film industry. Joan just returned from a trip to China. She hustled back and made sure that she was here in San Francisco in time to accept this award and to present Xiu Xiu, The Scent Down Girl with our audiences. Thank you so much, Joan, for saying yes and for believing in the work that we do here at SFFILM and at the San Francisco International Film Festival, and for your ongoing support of our organization. Besides screening her work and celebrating her here today as an artist, I also just am hopeful that we can all celebrate her as a human for her strength and her determination, her wit, her mischievous humor, and of course, her artistry. So please join me in welcoming Joan Chen to the stage, our tribute at the San Francisco International Film Festival. Oh, dang it.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you. Thank you. It's very sharp. um, I'm just really grateful that it has been almost half century of a career, and filmmaking, being creative, really has nourished me. For nearly 50 years. So grateful. That's all I could say. And hopefully, I was thinking, I was at Beijing Film Festival closing night just 2 days ago, and it happened to be my birthday. And there was in an audience of over 1,000 people, they gave me a surprise birthday party. And I was thinking, at this age, what's there to celebrate? Well, why happy birthday? Honestly, just to celebrate life itself, being alive in the flesh, soul, still thinking, still being creative, and very grateful. So thank you all for being here. And thank you, San Francisco Film Festival, Jesse, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Joan. And in the spirit of being human, I, of course, forgot to throw to the tribute reel before I started talking because we have a beautiful tribute reel for Joan. So sorry about all that. I'm going to first introduce Janet Yang, who is here with us today, who is going to be moderating the conversation with Joan. After I've introduced Janet, we're going to show the tribute reel that I mistakenly forgot to do at the top, and then we'll get right into the conversation. So it'll be a lovely way for the juices to get flowing and for you all to see Joan as both a director and a performer. As mentioned, we have Emmy and Golden Globe award-winning Hollywood producer Janet Yang in the house. She is currently the president of the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Science and has flown up here to be here with us today, and we are so thrilled that she agreed to come and host this conversation. Janet has worked with some of the most esteemed filmmakers in Hollywood, including Steven Spielberg, and has produced several films in a long-term partnership where she served as the executive producer on The Joy Luck Club, which many of us know and love, as a producer on the Golden Globe, winning The People versus Larry Flint. And her most recent credit as executive producer is on the Oscar-nominated animated feature Over the Moon. This film is based on Janet's original story, and the film was directed by legendary animator Glenn Keane. It is on Netflix if you have not yet seen it. Most recently, Janet was named one of 50 most powerful women in Hollywood. It is a recognition that is well-deserved. She is continuing to steward both the Academy and films in a direction that is inclusive of more voices and recognition of art that doesn't often fit into the Hollywood canon. She is a long-standing influential leader in both the film community and in the Asian American community, and we just could not be more thrilled that Janet agreed to come up here to host her friend and our tributee, Joan Chen. So thank you so much, Janet, for being here. They will both take the stage after you see the tribute reel. Thank you for rolling with us through this, and thank you both again so much for being here. If we could please show the clip.
我怎么生出这样一条小狗来？闭嘴，闭嘴！我们家儿子不懂事的时候，北京就来人把他接走了。
Why did you shoot me, Josie?
Because you came here. I knew this day was going to come.
你把我儿子给弄丢了，现在我还没找你算账呢，我。
10,000 yen!
Please welcome Janet Yang and Joan Chen.
Hello, everyone. Excuse me while I find my notes. And first of all, thank you to the San Francisco International Film Festival for having me, and much gratitude to the staff and for all of those who were tracking my movements this morning, wondering if I was going to make it. I apologize, but I'm glad I'm here. And I was saying to Peter, who is Joan's husband and is a heart surgeon, that if anyone had a heart attack, you were here to help them. So it was a little touch and go. Anyway, it is. I had to come up because, and I'm going to get emotional too. Joan and I met, and she already revealed that she's been doing this for close to 50 years. So I don't mind saying that we met 43 years ago in Beijing. I had been living there for a year and a half. I went there post-college to have an adventure. You know, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I was working, but it was not clear, except that I just want to learn more about the culture. And I met Joan Chen. By the way, she's Joni to me, and I have to confess, we have a friend that calls us Janny Poo and Joni Poo, so I won't.
That's right.
So Joni Poo, no, Joan or Chen Chong was already a star of astronomical proportions. I mean, she, not only from youth, a Xiejin movie, but a movie called Xiaohua, Little Flower. Her posters were everywhere. She was on the cover of every magazine. And when I met her in 1981, she said she was going to the United States. And I was completely flummoxed by this. I was like, why in the world would you give up your incredibly esteemed position to go to America, where Asians are barely part of the media landscape? I did not understand it at all, but she seemed determined. I could not stop her. And I was just hoping she wouldn't be terribly disappointed. And of course, she went on to have this brilliant career. So, Joan, what was going on in your mind back then? What was your motivation?
China was just opening up, and the United States and China just reestablished diplomatic relationship. And I was actually learning English. So I felt that going to America would be the right place to learn English. And also, I think I never trusted my sudden fame in China, and I felt it was dangerous. And I felt very shallow as a person, and I wanted to continue my education because I had about less than half a year of high school. That was all. And I was picked to go make films, and I just wanted to come and study. I think curiosity, just really curious. I actually appreciate the mutual curiosity that the two countries had back then. Yeah.
And you planned on staying, and by the way, curiosity is probably the thing that all artists have in common. So the curiosity brought you here. Did you think long term about whether you would stay or go back, or that wasn't even part of the equation?
Actually, it was very difficult for me to get a passport back then. I was the darling of China, and they felt that they shouldn't lose me to the United States, and the fans weren't happy, and so it took me more than half a year to just get my passport, and never thought what would happen after the arrival. It was just like, okay, my goal was to go there to study, and that was all, and never expected or imagined my life here. And so, let alone go make movies in Hollywood. No, I was ready to just give it all up and be a student.
Well, it didn't take you very long to start getting roles, which is amazing. This was another place where we intersected. I was in San Francisco sharing an office with Wayne Wang, running a company called World Entertainment, distributing Chinese cinema. And you were working with Wayne on one of your first roles in Dim Sum. And that led to another big role you had in the movie Taipan, which was a much heralded movie that got a lot of attention, groundbreaking. It was not particularly something that the Chinese government was fond of because they probably didn't like seeing a colonized China. They probably mentioned that they didn't like you bearing skin. But I have to say, throughout the 80s and 90s, when I was traveling quite a bit to China, literally the first thing that people would ask me, friends and random fuyuan, like service people, I'd walk into a hotel or restaurant, they knew I was from America, they'd said, 陈通怎么样? 陈通怎么样? That was all they wanted to know. How's Joan? They hadn't forgotten you at all. They still revered you. They were so concerned about you. It was so touching. They were so concerned. Is she doing okay in America? But it was difficult to navigate, I imagine, in that period where you were beloved by the people, the government had some issues. What was that like for you?
No, thinking back decades later, I realized that it was really the fans. They loved me. And that's why they had a problem with, leaving them, abandoning them as well as my own career to come here. But that's the realization now. Decades later, I understand it better. But back then, I felt very lonely. I felt like, coming to America was already extremely difficult to try to learn the language, to try to get used to a very different culture. And then I felt like, could I even ever go back now that the fans felt that I've betrayed them, especially after Taipan came out, that I played the lover of a Taipan, a white person who they at that time they felt like these were the kind of Taipans were the kind of people who brought in the opium and ruined China. And to be a willing lover was something that really was kind of disgusting to them. And so I was in a really bad position. The newspapers started to talk about my betrayal of my motherland, and so it was a very, very difficult period for me in school, and trying to break into Hollywood and knowing that I'm offending my fan base in China. It was a difficult time.
But you pulled through. You pulled through, and you're working regularly in China now. And the as mentioned earlier, the film that is, it's so hard to believe, really, back in the 80s. Again, our lives intersected so much. You had the most memorable role in that incredibly acclaimed movie, The Last Emperor. Bernardo Bertolucci was able to get into the Forbidden City and shoot there. I was working with Steven Spielberg on a movie called Empire of the Sun, where the whole city of Shanghai became available to us. Things that would be very difficult to achieve now, of course. And then you went on to do Twin Peaks, and you were in Heaven and Earth with my former partner, Oliver Stone. I have some great photos of us in singing in Thailand. I won't share them right now. You did action movies with Rutger Hauer. You had such an incredible career, very, very, very varied, and mostly here at the time. What can you share about all those different experiences working with different kinds of directors and different genres?
I wasn't at all expecting to work in Hollywood. I felt that was an impossibility. When I first came to the United States, I never really saw any Asian faces on the screen, or once in a big while when I did see, they were like one servant or some laundry person, one or two shots. And so I never really expected that. And in school, I was actually working in the restaurants, supporting myself through school. And one day, one of my classmates, who were a little bit older than the other students, and she was a professional stunt woman working in Hollywood. And I found her, missing class all the time because she was working. And we got to talk, and she said, "Oh, I can't believe it. You work in the restaurant? You won Best Actress in China?" And said, it pays much better if you work a day on the set in Hollywood compared to the restaurant. And that was the reason that I wanted to get a little more pay. And so I said, "I don't know how to go about it and do it." And she said, "You find an agent." I said, "What is an agent?" In China, there was never agents. I was like, "So where and how?" And one day she came back from another shoot, and she gave me a slip of paper, and she said, "Here you go. This is where you must go." And it says Bessie Lou Agency. Bessie Lou Agency at that time represents all Asians, every Asian. That was the only agency. And so I was in Northridge, in Cal State Northridge, and I took the bus for about 2 hours to get to Hollywood, and walked into a Bessie Lou Agency. Back then, Bessie retired, and so it was Guy Lee who was there. The office was pretty empty. And I walked in, the secretary said, "Oh, do you have an appointment with Guy?" I said, I didn't even understand the concept of appointment, because back in China, we show up at friend's house. There was never a need for making appointments. I said, I don't have an appointment. And said, "Well, you can't see Guy if you don't have an appointment." And Guy was inside. There was no one else. Guy said, "Okay, send her over." And so I walked in. My friend, the stunt woman, Dana, helped me made a resume. I gave it to Guy. I said, "This is my resume." And Guy just looked at me funny. I mean, early 80s, basically not many people in America had ever met someone from mainland China. It was like right after the Cold War. And he looked at me, and then we got to chat and said, "What about a headshot?" I said, "What is a headshot?" And then he showed me these headshots of different men and women, and most women were the same, like the anime Wong haircut. And he felt me being kind of unauthentic because I don't have that particular look. I said, "Oh, okay." And then he gave me a name card and he said, "Well, go find this photographer and make yourself a headshot, best actress." And he really thought I was crazy, making up my resume like a fantasy. So that's the beginning. And I was sent out to some fried chicken, some commercial thing. They had an open call, and I went there. I saw all these different girls, and I got scared. I left, and guy said, "Well, if you can't do that, I sent you out. You need to go." I said, "Okay, I'll go next time." And then next, I got a part in. Was there a show called Simon, something like that? An old TV show. There was a Miss Taiwan, and you just walk across the street, no line. And I got that part. And there was one other one. There was some really B film. I played the corpse of a dead whore. It was just, and these two things that kind of got me into SAG.
Wow. Yes, let's hear it for you, Joan. So funny, so touching, and also so sad. Yeah. God, it does make me emotional because it mirrors so much of what the immigrant experience has been like for many, because this is what I warned you about, Joan, back in 1981. You're at the top of your game in your home country, and you come here with big dreams, and you have to start all over again. And back in the day, I was there too. There were no Asians. I mean, there was James Hong and Beulah Kuo, and they were represented by Bessie Liu too. Every Asian actor, even if you were being that butler in the background, that was the Bessie Liu client. We've come a long way. Yeah. We've come a long way.
We certainly have. I mean, it's so much better and so much hopeful now. I think it's wonderful.
Okay, so the opening night film of this lovely festival was Dìdi. You've worked with so many people, but on Dìdi, directed by Sean Wong, and I think Nai Nai and Waipo might be in the audience today. I saw them outside.
They're there, and Sean's mom, Cynthia, they're all there. They're almost like family to me now.
I'm sure. I got to meet Nai Nai and Waipo during the Oscars because Sean's short film, Nai Nai and Waipo, of course, was nominated. It was such a pleasure. They were absolutely delightful. But you are now working with first-time director, a lot of first-timers, a lot of non-actors. What was that experience like for you?
So when Sean first approached me, he gave me the script, and it was such a good, solid script. For a writer-director of that young of an age, I was really impressed and just feel like, and I love working with young people. You always get that energy, that enthusiasm. I worked with a couple of first directors in the past, and it's like their virgin work, and they put so much of their life, their entire life into it. And Sean was obviously extremely talented, from the script that I wrote, that he wrote, that I read. And we had a couple of meetings. It was not a hard decision at all. Through the making of it, I was in a way really relieved and happy that he was, as a first-time director, very assured and calm, very calm, with a very tight schedule, pretty specific, knows what he wanted, and just very gentle touch, very gentle touch. And his sincerity, he's so in touch with his inner feelings and his sense of humanity, love for the family. I'm so happy for him, like so thrilled that this film is now giving him more opportunity. Yeah.
I'm so thrilled for him. I'm so thrilled for the audience, for many of you who get to see films like this in this era, because this did not exist before. To be able to tell an authentic personal story and find an audience is really phenomenal. And it's a very different time. And I just think all of you should, because I see a lot of young people in this audience, I think you probably recognize that it is virtually unprecedented. I mean, Joan and I and many others came into the business where if you saw one Asian face somewhere in a crowd of people, that was a big deal. And you immediately went up to that person to find out who they were. So now we have lots of role models, a plethora of talent, actors, writers, directors, producers, and on, journalists, and a whole ecosystem. And I do want to shout out both two organizations. One is called CAPE, Coalition of Asian Pacific Americans. Another is Gold House. There are, I happen to be a founder of Gold House, a co-founder, but the point is that there really is a sense of community for the first time, which simply did not exist. Okay, so Joan, it wasn't enough for you to be making so many films as an actor across different continents. Something pulled you into the world of directing, and particularly into this story that you're all about to see, Xiu Xiu, the Sent Down Girl. What was that roiling inside you?
I wasn't planning to be a director at all. My friend told me the story of Xiu Xiu, the Sent Down Girl. It happened to a friend of hers. And she, at that time, said, I'm wondering of writing this into a novella. And I was moved when she told me the story. And pretty soon she had the novella written. And I brought it with me when I went to Berlin Film Festival as a jury member. That was close to the end of the century. And there were a lot of really dark and pessimistic movies. And somehow I felt that I felt I had a better story to tell. And it was better to me, obviously, because it is a story of my generation. I felt like I must tell this story, like before I could tell any other stories. There was no part in the film for me to play. And so the only thing I could think of to be a narrator, to tell the story would be a director. Never before in my life I thought about being a director. That was the first time it occurred to me, is because I truly, truly wanted to tell a story. And I think I felt like, just like Scheherazade, that you tell stories to save yourself, to redeem yourselves and your experience. And that kind of urgency, that was the first time I felt it, that I must do it, with no experience, no script, no money, nothing. And with that story, so on my way back from Berlin, the 13 hours, I had a short script ready from the a novella, and I gave it to the author, and she said, "Oh, wow, you're serious?" I said, "Yes, I think I am." And just to raise the funds for it was something I'd never done before either. I think maybe still that kind of a drive, it's like Sean's drive that, he must tell that story. That was the most important story of your life. I mean, it is the story of my own generation. For 10 years, either middle school graduates, high school graduates, university graduates, they were being sent down. And from the year, I was 10 years old or maybe even younger, my parents would talk about, how to keep our children in Shanghai. And my brother became a professional athlete and stayed in Shanghai. So I was sure to go. And just so lucky that the film studio, Shanghai Film Studio, came to my high school and said, they picked me out of the crowd to go become a member of Shanghai Film Festival. So I didn't get sent down, but my neighbors, my friends, and a lot of older classmates for my acting school later, they all told me about their experiences. And so I know that is the story of my generation. When I was making the film, I don't know where I got the statistics about 7 million young people being sent down. But now I do it again. It's about 20 million people. It's an entire generation. So just that urgency to tell the story.
And what a story to tell. What did you learn in the process of going through that? Everything from fundraising, directing, being on a set, being in a place, directing without the permissions, all of it. What were the biggest challenges and the rewards? I mean, it's pretty incredible. You are fearless.
Oh, thank you. I think it's always in proportion, the amount of challenges and an amount of satisfaction. The more challenges you have to go through, the more satisfaction it brings you, even regardless of the result. It could come out as not a great film at all, but still you overcome the challenges, and that in itself, in life experience, in the journey of life itself, is satisfying. It is important. It is learning. And of course, with the filming, I learned a great deal. It was extremely difficult. We went to this region that nobody ever made a film there. It was probably one of the 3 poorest regions in the whole of China. Hongyuan, it's Hongyuan Xian. It's called the Red County. It was not a naturally established township. It's like, historically, people built cities where there might be rivers, things to grow food, and then slowly built that civilization. But that town was built because of the Long March, where all the wounded and the people who were not able to go on stayed, and so established a town not in a naturally nourishing location. And so it was a very difficult place to shoot. I remember there was one phone line, hand-cranked phone line from Hongyuan to Beijing and nowhere else. And so I was completely out of touch with my husband, with any of my family members. I remember, my Chinese manager, Eric, is also here. So basically, I would take a fax machine and go to that phone station, which was manned by a man who was usually drunk. And I was a little bit scared of him. I would take a fax machine and try to convince him that I'm just going to plug it in for a little, very short time. I would send a fax to Eric. Then Eric would then refax it to Peter. I mean, that's how the communication was. And then all the negatives, the shot film had to be then transported. It was really difficult. It's probably the distance wise from where we shot to the nearest city where you could have an airplane in Chengdu was not that far. It's a little farther away between LA and here probably, but it would take an entire day in a driving vehicle because of the roads in the mountains. It's in the high plateaus. So, I mean, that was just like, the whole entire crew and cast, we didn't have showers for the first month. It was just like you would come back from work, you open your door and you would smell yourself in there. It was like, and finally we found somewhere in some kind of a old factory base that they had a shower that opened once a week. And so, some of us had the showers finally after the first month. Yeah. So it was really, really hard. Yeah.
These stories are incredible. Did you hire all crew from China? And that's a sign of a good director too. You get people to jump onto your dream and going into the unknown. And you clearly did a great job of that. And as an actor, you were already familiar with being on set. Many actors, in fact, have become very good directors. But how did you learn about camera? And, did you study? Did you did you just hire people that you could trust? I mean, what was that whole process like for you?
Yeah, good question. So I think I thought back to The Last Emperor. And back then, I started the process when I was 25. When Last Emperor finished shooting, I was 26. And I just wanted to have fun. I didn't really pay attention or, learn, but you couldn't help remembering these, really, the masters of the era in every, like the head of artistic departments. And I thought about, I think it was Bernardo Bertolucci and that process that gave me a sense of romance about filmmaking. And when I started, I thought of him. I thought of The Last Emperor. And then when I gave the script to a few of the creative people that I have worked with before, they came over to support me. And I think never really learned about truly, exactly where to put the camera and how to present. It was going by the instinct and also having a great crew who I learned a great deal from, mostly from the artistic supervisor, which is the art director, the production designer. He also designed all the makeups, costume, everything. He was one of the best. He was the production designer for Ang Lee's Last Caution also. And so I worked, he became a good teacher for me. So I love the movie set. So the set itself and working with actors are something that I feel would come naturally to me. But to come back to the Bay Area and do post-production was a deep learning curve because as an actor, we were always on the set, but we never did post-production. And so that I was so fortunate that I had my editor, Ruby Yang, and Tom Bullock was the post supervisor, a quick learning. And that's what I love about this industry. And there's always so much to learn. And it feels just wonderful that you feel you're growing and you're learning and you're making mistakes, and that's all worth it. Um, I still love this profession because of it, and the new technologies develop, and you learn new technology, and then you continue to consider what is actually cinema, what is cinema today, and you're always learning. I think that keeps you young. Yeah.
Well, it certainly shows on your face how young you've kept. But besides being a multi-hyphenate, this is my final question because somebody's given me the 5-minute mark. Besides being a multi-hyphenate in terms of acting, directing, writing, producing, you also have traversed 2 continents consistently, worked fully in both Hollywood and China. We all know that relations between these 2 countries have changed quite a bit over the years and decades. Anything you can say about the heart-wrenching nature of really politicians trying to tell us not to like the other side, at various times very intensely. Sometimes we're very friendly. Sometimes we're not friendly with the turn of a dime, right? What can you say about that, about the future of Hollywood-China collaboration? Because as we discussed in the 80s with 2 world-class filmmakers happily making movies in China, everybody thought, oh, this is the dawn of a new era. That got shut down. Then things came back up again. Now we're at a low point. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so both Janet, you and me, we really experienced the good era when the U.S. and China and the people really were so genuinely curious and with kind hearts being curious. And now we no longer are curious. We make judgments, and that was it, and I think the media certainly didn't help. It's really tragic, I think. When Last Emperor was made, the Chinese government was so supportive that every extra, there are hundreds and thousands of extras, were soldiers from the army. They were so disciplined. They were the best extras. And, they all came, had their heads all shaved off. And they like training that they do every day, so good. And Forbidden City was closed down for us to shoot there. And then the second palace, which was when the Japanese made Puyi the emperor again, was also exactly in that palace. We shot in the real palaces, which never happened again. And that was how supportive the Chinese government was to make co-productions. And you experienced it in Shanghai. And today, it just seemed like so arbitrarily, the 2 countries decided that, so fearful of the other, so much accusations. These things had little to do with people, with us, with people. And, we all know that the U.S. and China have such complementary strengths. There are things that we do well here, and there are things that they do well there, and they're very complementary. I mean, just, the U.S. have this creative juice because of probably our diversity and immigrants and the freedom. You have all these new creative process, good with invention. research and invention, and you do need a place where people could apply. So the application and the development is where China does so well. And just imagine if these two countries come together, that would be like a brand new world economy. That's what we understand as people, but I don't know about our leaders. I mean, that is, hopefully, art would be the bridge, and hopefully we will make films that that will express humanity, that we share so much in common. We're all humans of this universe more and more. I mean, in front of AI, in front of all these machineries that is taking over us, we as a humanity is together. So I'm still hopeful. I'm still hopeful.
Thank you. I'm hopeful too. I think that if anything, storytellers have to double down. Like, this is what we do. This is how we can make a contribution to the world that we would like to see.
Well said.
So, Joan, you have shared so generously and so deeply. And I feel very privileged to have known you for all these decades.
Thank you so
Our
much.
lives have had strange, intersections, but so much of what you say touches me deeply, and I'm sure the audience as well. So thank you all for joining us, and enjoy Xiu Xiu, the Sundown Girl.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shadiana. And Joan, before you leave this stage, Joan, there's one last thing we'd like to do. It was Joan's birthday on Friday. She's gonna murder me for saying this. You have a cousin. You have a cousin here who has some flowers for you.
Oh my God!
And I'm not gonna ask everyone to sing, but would
Why not?
If you would like to come up, and maybe if everyone would be willing, we could just say happy birthday, Joan. Would everyone be willing to do that?
Oh
and
my
I'm so
God.
sorry, Joan. I know you're gonna be very mad at me for this. But
not happy birthday?
on the count of
All right.
1, 2, 3, everyone.
Happy birthday.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. Thank you.